All right, you guys. So today we have our brother, Mr. Mayonnaise from Australia, joining us. And there he is.
Good morning.
Good morning,
Good morning
man.
from Australia.
What time is it over there for you guys right now?
It's like 9 o'clock.
Oh, man.
Earliest I've been up all quarantine.
Sorry to put the gun to your head, man.
I got my Baraka.
There we go. I got my coffee just over here, so we're all good to go. How you doing, brother? How's everything going, man? How's life?
All good, man. It's just a little different.
Yeah.
Just a little different. How about you?
Well, for one thing, this is the longest I've been at the studio in God knows how long. I've been on the road just like you, man. So it's
you guys having a paint party, right?
Yeah. Actually, Franco's getting down on a piece right now. I'm playing around and dabbling on a few things. Just staying creative, man. We gotta stay creative at this time, dude. We gotta explore whatever we can because, dude, not many times in life do we get this time out. You know. So
I know, man. It's a weird one because it's like as soon as you're forced to do something. Like I remember a while ago, there was some friends of mine were on holiday in Bali. And that volcanic ash cloud stopped all the flights coming out of Bali.
Oh, shit.
And they were all like, oh, man, we just want to come home. We're sick of Bali. Like, and I'm like, motherfuckers, you're stuck in Bali. Like, you'd be dreaming about getting stuck in Bali for a month, you know? And then as soon as it happens, you're like, let me out of it. I want my normal life back. Like,
yeah, right? No kidding, man. But
you got to see the silver lining of these things, you know?
You have to. I mean, everybody's being hit by this, you know? Everybody's being affected, whether it's financially, you know, you're being stuck with your family. Like, you're actually home. You're having to deal with things. You're actually having to face problems and face issues that you may have been able to hide, you know? And for a lot of people, they're having a tough time with that. But, you know, all we can do is... What's up?
It's tough because as Carlos said in his interview, you know, you don't want to be like, motherfucker, I'm on holiday, you know, because people are doing it so tough, like, and you know, by no means are we doing it easy, but it's like being from a creative industry, isolation and being on your own. Like when I paint, it's just me and my painting the whole time.
Yeah, so actually talk to us about that. Like, so how have you been getting through your quarantine time? I know you do fine art. I know you go and put up on buildings. Like, what have you been doing to keep yourself creative, to keep yourself motivated and pushing forward?
Just churning through the commissions. So I've been lucky enough to have a good stock of commissions that what I usually do is save them up. Yeah. And then if I have like, you know, if I need to do them quickly or whatever, then I'll make time for them. But I try to save them up and do them all at the same time.
Okay.
So I'll take off a month or something like that and just paint as much as I can. I'm lucky in my tattoo shop. I've got an art studio upstairs, so I can always like duck off and paint and then tattoo.
By the way, congratulations on the new studio. I mean,
thank you, man.
Didn't get too much time up over there, but
I think we got like 3 or 4 months before they're like, close your fucking doors.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
What's up, my brother?
Oh,
hey, Franco.
What's going on, Mayo? How you
doing? Just chilling, man. Looking forward to this.
Thank you for waking up nice and early.
I know. I was up at 7:30.
Woo! Damn.
We were actually
like a normal day.
We were just talking about being creative. I mean, we got Boss Man literally working on a painting over here. He's finally getting some time to paint during the daytime, man.
You're gonna give us a sneaky look or what?
Yeah. That's why he wasn't here when we started. He's like, let me just get a little bit more time in.
I had to you know how it is when you're painting, man. Like, it's hard to pull you away from a painting. You know, it's like it's just like you're almost glued to the canvas like a magnet.
Yeah, you got to make the most of the moment, right?
Heck yeah, man. What are you drinking in the morning time? That doesn't look like coffee.
It's a Baraka. You know, you guys got Baraka, right?
What is that?
It's like vitamins and electrolytes and shit.
Okay, that sounds.
Okay.
That sounds.
It's like it's meant to be a hangover. You know, you take them when you get a hangover or whatever. But I just have them anyway. I'm not hungover.
You're like, it's gonna wake me up, man. So let's get into some conversation about Australia. Let's. I like to touch on the Corona situation just a little bit. We'd like to check into our friends from around the world. So you're the first that we've got a chance to talk to from Australia. What's going on in Australia right now with the COVID and everything like that?
So it's a stage 3 lockdown.
Okay.
Meaning essential businesses are closed, but it's a blurry line is what they consider essential. So tattoo shops are definitely closed, but hairdressers are allowed to be open, strangely enough.
Yeah. Oh, really?
So there's a few blurry lines like that, which is annoying for the public because it's kind of hard to get a solid reading from the government at times. But they've done the right thing, I think, where they've locked the borders down. They've made social distancing. They're handing out fines for anyone that's not taking that into account. And then I think we had one recorded case yesterday.
Oh, that's it.
One dude, yeah. So it started off like, we were getting, I think the worst it was like, I don't think it was 600 in a day, but there was a lot in a day, and it started to snowball, and all the governments closed down all the borders to the States, locked down all the essential businesses. Victoria, the state that I'm in, has closed all the schools, so it's homeschooling at the moment.
Total shutdown. Man,
yeah.
What happens to an artist, man? What happens to here's the beautiful thing about artists, man. Like,
we thrive, man.
You're from Australia. You live in a different part of the world. Yet we have the same blood, man. We are creative individuals. What happens to the artist that gets locked down? What are you doing?
I got a little spare room at my house, right? And I've always been like, I'll never work from home because I hate having a home studio, blah, blah, blah. It's always good to go to work and get it done and then go home. But I decided this is the smallest little room, but I've made it work, and I've got all my commissions going, man. I've got 2 going on at the moment. I finished 2 before. I've got another 2 coming up, a bunch more inquiries. So it's like,
nice.
I've got a couple of paintings that I want to paint as well, some ideas that I like that I haven't had a chance to just paint because I want to paint.
Well, I just want to let you know, man, the painting you did for our studio brings me great joy.
So good, man.
I'm always, I see that every day. I'm just like, man, that's so cool, man. It's just people love it when they come in. It's just, I appreciate it as it should be appreciated.
I was stoked to do that.
Yeah, I was stoked to do that and go to Javier's afterwards with you. That was cool.
That's right.
But what's crazy is everybody that walks in there, they're like, oh, that's a Mayo piece, isn't it? And we're like, yeah. Yep.
Well, what makes a Mayo piece for all the artists out there tuning in that love your style? Tell us about like how your style developed. What does a Mayo piece consist of? Like,
so I started off with a different hand style, with a graffiti based sort of thing, like on the street. Just bombing. I love bombing. That was my favorite shit, doing rooftops and tagging,
this was before tattooing, right?
No, I've been tattooing for 18 years.
Oh, shit.
And I've been painting for probably 12.
Okay.
Maybe 14. So I started tattooing, and it was like, as we all do, we all get completely obsessed with it and put everything into it, and it's everything to us,
Yeah.
And there's not really much time for any hobbies outside of tattooing, because what am I going to go and waste 5 hours a day, playing golf or some shit when I could be honing my artistic skills?
Yep.
So I was trying to find something that was like, the golf version of art, and I found graffiti. It was like, you pack your bag, like you grab your clubs or whatever, and you go out and you pick 10 spots for the night, and you walk around those spots with a couple of mates, not too many, just a couple, and you hit all those spots. And it's the same thing, man. Like, you go out, you play 18 holes with a couple of your mates and your bag full of clubs. It's just, I traded them in for paint and
graffiti golf
and a bit of crime instead of
Yeah, you get the added bonus of having your heart beat, unlike golf where it just beats slow.
Yeah, man. And I mean, the thing with graffiti was, and it wasn't intentional. It was just that because I was essentially shoving it down the city's throat, where they had to take notice of it. People started to see my work and my tags and ask me to tag. People that knew that it was me would ask me to, like, especially dudes out of my crew, would ask me to tattoo them with that style of whatever they wanted. Sometimes it would, like, my crew's called ID, so I would always be doing Instinct Driven, which was the acronym, the #1 acronym for that crew.
Oh, cool.
So I did a bunch of instinct driven tattoos in the more of like a graffiti hand style tattoo, and it was pretty clumsy. It didn't really work. It was a bit annoying. Whereas, like, and I hate to say it, but sometimes I wouldn't do one that I liked that much, because the way paint behaves, you can be fluid and gestural with it.
Yep.
And you get like cool effects. But if you do that with a tattoo machine, it doesn't really work all the time. and if you're doing 50 tags in a night and 5 of them are shit, it doesn't matter. Whereas, you know, one shit tattoo kind of sucks. So I had to kind of rethink about how I was making that tattoo. And I started to use, going from a round shader, I started to use a Magnum and use it like I used it as a marker, because I always loved the shape of a marker tag.
Okay.
And I just started to mark on my tattoos like I would with a chisel marker.
Okay.
And then I would come back and fill them in or whatever. And that allowed me to keep it a little bit more controlled rather than doing some like random movements and hoping that they look cool. I could actually control and be precise and pretty much know that it was going to come out with a good result.
That's pretty cool. So your technique, so it's almost like you have to pull those brush strokes with a needle a lot slower than you would the can of spray paint, right? More methodical. What are the needle groupings that you use? I know I love the one you did on Dimitri over here. I love looking at that one. That was one of the first times I got a chance to see you work.
No pressure on that one.
Ouch. So what needle groupings do you like to use? What bags?
So I always use flat Magnums. Always use a flat. Even when I was doing other styles, I would always use a flat. Someone said to me, it's like using a curved Magnum is like someone's cut off your thumbs, and it always like resonated with me. I was like, true, because you can't quite get into all the corners. And
you can't chisel. Yeah, you can't chisel it. Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about that for a second. So you've been tattooing for 18 years, right?
Yeah, man.
So when you first started tattooing, what kind of stuff was going on in Australia? What was the tattoo culture like in Australia? And then tell me how that parlayed into your hand lettering styles of tattooing.
So,
how long did that take? And how was it?
I guess I was tattooing, you know, I started off like everybody doing everything, but in Australia, I always joke about it. You know, the tattoo scene now is up to date, but in those days, you know, 2000, I started early 2002, end of 2002. And I always joke that, you know, like 2002 here was like 1992 over there, you know, over in the States. Like, it was a little bit far behind. And I started off in a suburban shop as well, called Alien Tattoo for a guy named Sharky. And the stuff was like Cherry Creek Flash, man. That was what I was living off. Cherry Creek, Indians, tribal roses, you know, all the barbed wire, all the rest of it. Those impossible line drawings that they would make for you to make your life easier, that made it way more difficult when you actually tried to copy that line drawing into a tattoo. And then it was tribal, man. I got my chops doing tribal. I mean, I always say that lettering is just tribal in the shape of letters, you know, like it's, and I think it's a good thing to learn your flow of the body and everything. And then I started to get interested in like biomechanical Geiger sort of stuff. Guy Aitchison, Aaron Kane, all those guys. You know, Ron Earhart did my hand for me back in San Jose.
I love Ron Earhart. I got a couple of his original paintings.
Man, he's a dude. I had a good time getting tattooed by him.
Yep.
Yeah, man. And then sort of started to get interested into neo-traditional, and then I ended up in a shop that had a really strong Japanese background called Tattoo Magic. That was after, traveling through Europe and then back into Australia, and I settled, and I was like, I need to dig my teeth in here and learn the real high end side of custom tattooing. And I ended up at a shop called Tattoo Magic for 8 years.
Okay.
And that was, definitely shaped everything that I've got going on now. Is I relate, I think that everything is the same, whether it's, if you're drawing a rose stem, I always think of Japanese water or fire,
Mm-hmm.
If you like, I think everything relates back to water and fire with art and flow. Yeah.
Flow. Yeah. So share with us a little bit about your story and maybe give some advice to a lot of artists that are trying to find their style. What was it for you that finally clicked, where you went from doing all these different types of tattooing, it was sort of a job for you, and then you clicked into having your own style, which is now sought after both in paintings and tattooing? What was it for you that clicked?
It was rinse and repeat, man. It was rinse and repeat. There was no, I couldn't put my finger on a key moment where I was like, everything is now this. Like one hand washes the other. So, tattooing, painting influenced my tattooing, and then tattooing now influenced my painting, because I changed my round brush for my flat brush to emulate the Magnum. So now I've got this style here more so than this roundy style. I started doing the roundy style on this other one, but you can't see it anymore. But it was, that was probably the major thing, was just letting one thing like help you get to the next stage, like using multiple disciplines or whatever to allow you to just grow into your style. You can't just go out and pick a style and say, I'm going to be good at that, because there's no authenticity to that. And I think that's the key to any creative outlook at all, is people want to see authenticity. They want to know that what you're doing is original and it's real. It's not contrived. It isn't cooked up and then like, I've got a marketing plan and I've got this and I've got that and I'm going to do this style and I'm going to be a lettering guy. It was never that. It was just, I let it happen organically and kept authentic, man. Just did what felt good, like the movements that I do with my lettering, they feel good to do out of my body. Like that's why I enjoy doing it, like
I could relate to that. Well, but that's pretty cool though, because like it's, everyone's looking for their own style and whatnot, and I think that it has to come organic and it sort of has to just happen. And I always relate tattooing to music, and everybody wants to be signed by a big label and have hit records and stuff, and like your music is your lettering style and people resonate with that. We're getting a lot of love sent your way. A lot of dudes and dudettes love your work. Mario Fast 35, his work is insane, says Ink Soul.
Thank
Nacho
you.
Loren, artist. Nice painting, Mayo. This dude is real and honest. Well, Carl DePitch, thanks for tuning in. Hey, big shout out to Carlos Torres, who's tuning in as well.
Hey, Carlos.
Yeah, you're at his shop and stuff.
Juan Sanchez.
We love you, man. I love you, bro.
I mean, we got some.
What's up, Ben? What's up, Juan? You know what? One of my favorite things about you, when I got a chance to meet you, is, and James met you before I did, and he was like, "Oh, you're gonna love this guy. He's super authentic and real, and
he's a good dude, man."
And one of the favorite things about us interviewing artists right now during these quarantine conversations is a lot of people have not had a chance to meet you as a person. Yeah. They see your lettering, they see your style, and they love it. But then they wonder, like, what does he look like? How does he talk? Where's he from? So on our Bishop platform, I love personally, and James loves sharing. I like bragging about who you are as a human being, not so much as an artist, but so much as a dope, honest, real human being. And that's what I like so much about you. We crack jokes. You're silly. You know what I mean? You got a crazy sense of humor. You know what I mean? So I appreciate you, joining us for today and really sharing your personality and who you are with the tattoo world.
Well, it's easy. It's easy with you guys, man. It's easy when you've got something in common with someone. I instantly feel comfortable with you guys. Like as soon as I met James, as soon as I met yourself, it was and Carlos. Carlos. Yeah. Become a really close friend of mine now, and I consider you guys the same. And I was thinking about this in the shower actually, and it was like, it's hard to create something like authentic, like I said, but when it's a real, like, you know, the word family gets thrown around a lot.
Yeah.
But you guys really have created something that's like I feel like I'm part of a family. I'm not just sponsored by Bishop, you know. I'm sponsored by Bishop. I've been sponsored by other people, but I've never felt like included, and I've never felt like the reciprocation of gratefulness is equal. You know, we're equally grateful to each other for being a part of each other's careers or lives or companies or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And that's why Bishop's so special to me, you know.
I appreciate that, man. And it's a lot of people they ask, like, I want to be sponsored. And I always tell people, like, what makes our company different is we really can't sponsor a lot of people because we genuinely love to give the attention to our friends, and we like to check in with people and see how we're doing it. And it's not even so much you have to be this award-winning portrait artist. Like, we got Southpaw, who we sponsor, that's tattoos with one arm. You know what I mean? It's like
it's amazing.
Yo, we're gonna get him on here, dude. You want to hear a story? Like, yo, dude, you want somebody who's gonna inspire, and like all of a sudden you will realize like your life's problems aren't shit, dude.
Yeah.
Like, it's humility at its finest, and this guy's rising.
And that's what we love about. That's what we love about the family is it's an eclectic group of people. Really, at the end of the day, we're a bunch of artists. We speak the same language. I'm so grateful as with this company to connect so many people from around the world. I always tell James, I'm like, man, we're so lucky to have friends in different parts of the world. Like, most people I know, they don't even know one person in a different country unless it's like a relative or something. But like, man, we got you in Australia. We got like Antonio in Italy. We got Nikki Norberg in Sweden. It's like, you know what I mean? It's so cool, man, to just check in with people. Because really, not to sound like, you know, Terrence McKenna, but we're all one. We're all of the same family, really, human beings. But when it comes to artists, we're definitely one. We're definitely one race. There is no color. There is no language barrier. I speak the language.
There's no real borders, is there? You know?
No, it's all imaginary, right? Like, you know, I'm talking to you right now, and you're talking to me, but we're talking to each other, and that's what's cool about the Tattoo family. We appreciate that, man. And so everybody out there that wants to get sponsored, and they hit us up, man, we feel bad not being able to do it, man. But really, it's boutique-y. I hate to use that word boutique-y, but we really want to be able to be authentic. And I know sometimes when you spread yourself thin, like, it's hard to be authentic. It's like someone coming to you going, Mayo, look, I want you to paint 500 pieces in 1 month. You're just not going to be. You're not going to be able to
do it. I'll do it.
You'll do it.
The price is right.
Yeah, but let's answer a couple questions. Renato Lorenco artist. What's the basic and most important to learn about lettering? What's your fundamental truths about lettering?
I think the most important thing is to regulate everything, you know. So if you're gonna space things out, they have to be evenly spaced. You know, if you're gonna make a curl, make all your curls the same. You know, like, yeah, it has to have consistency to the flow of it and the way it's set out. Like, if you're gonna do a line of lettering like this, straight line, you can't have one letter lower and the other one higher, because it just looks so obviously out that so you just have to pay attention to the small details, those little things, and just look at the whole picture and go, why is that wrong, and then figure that out and make sure everything's straight and uniformed and regular. And then once you get that base, then you can start adding your flavor. Like, I think a lot of people try to have flavor straight away, and they don't study the base of the lettering. They just want to do the cool looking gang shit or some shit. But like, I started off doing script, you know, like fancy script was the most educational style for me, was to learn fancy script. Yeah, like cartoon told me years and years ago, probably 20 years ago, script and lettering, it's really math at the end of the day. There's a mathematical formula to it. Mm-hmm. And I think that, you know, what you're saying is important too, is like really paying attention to the overall picture and making sure that, you know, everything's in line with each other, and then hone in on all the detail. Exactly. A lot of times people make the mistake of doing it backwards. They'll hone in on each letter like it's the last thing they're going to do, and then when they pull back, it's like,
all different sizes.
Exactly.
You know?
Like you, because I always say it's like writing words and drawing letters, like, because I can't spell for shit, so I can't really write words, but I can draw letters, you know. So when you draw, like you said, if you're honing them and drawing one letter each time, then you're not concentrating on the, like if you're doing fancy script, again, it comes to like a water flow, like a circular flow, right? And then that all kind of comes off the next bit and the next bit. So you've just got to like look at the whole. It's really hard, isn't it? Because you look at the whole picture and the flow of it all, but then you've got to put your regulations. You've got to put your uniform into that into that flow in order for the flow to look flowy. You need something straight there as well. So it's contrast, I guess, building value.
I think it's like building a house. You know, you got to build the structure, the framework of it, and once that's done, complete and measured out, then you put the drywall on it, and then once the drywall is done, then you put the stucco or the Venetian plaster. I call that the icing on the cake.
Yeah.
Hey guys, everybody listening right now, we got Mayo live right now. This is your chance. This might be your only chance to ask him a question about his lettering style, or maybe what his favorite food is. I know James got a couple questions.
I've got a couple questions here. You know, you said you use flat mags. What are some of the variations in flat mags that you use, and what is the voltage that you use to pull your lines with your machine?
So I use the packer wand and the liner wand.
Yep.
So I'm usually running them around, I think, between sort of 6.5 to 7, so not too hard.
Okay.
You know, I'm not punching it in like crazy.
Yeah.
And then off those, like I love like 11 mags probably too small, so 13s, 15s, 17s.
Okay.
And then, you know, you go to 19s, 23s, and then 27s. Always flat. And I prefer a standard taper number 12, especially if I'm packing color or packing the black in. But I don't mind using the long taper number 12s as well. Yeah. And then obviously the bug pin 3s, the really, really tight 3 liners. I love those. You know that.
Yeah.
By the way, the new needles that you guys have dropped are killer, man. The cartridge system, the actual plastic of the cartridge, it holds the needle so well, and it is so easy to find. If you know, like these days, you know, after 18 years, you kind of know where the needle is anyway. But then when something comes along where you're like, shit, I can really see where they are. You realize that like it makes a difference. You know?
Yeah. Shout out to Carlos Torres on that. You know, Carlos and I designed that. We designed those over 2 years, and Carlos is very picky too. So I think together, man, we wanted to do, Mayo, is we noticed that in a lot of the cartridge companies, they would use the same plastic body for like a 1207 mag as they would like a 1009. You know, it's like we didn't want to do that. You know, so we made every single mold is for that particular needle. That's why
you can feel it.
That's why they fit so perfect. And they have high visibility, of course, and stuff. So, sending some love out to my brother Carlos Torres.
Yeah, man. We love you, Carlos.
Yeah. He helped us.
Miss you, bro. I want to be stuck in that house with you painting, man.
I know. Man. We wish you were out here in California with us, man.
Man.
Valley style.
Yeah. So tell us about Australia as a whole. A lot of people don't know that Australia has a lot of deep tattoo history. What kind of fun little things can you drop on the community in relation to tattoo history in Australia?
Well, it's Australia had the port of Sydney. You know, they had sailor ships coming through, just like Hawaii. You know, I mean, I don't think it was as frequent, but there's a pretty strong kind of biker influence in Australia.
Okay.
A pretty tough kind of tattoo history. You know, a lot of pretty raw, rugged, old school tattoo shops. Some of them are still around, man. You know. But I mean, when I think of the old school stuff, I just instantly think of like a guy, Greg Ardren, who I was lucky enough to meet and get tattooed by. I got this funny little skull off him. I'll see if I can show you.
Let's see it. Let's see it.
Hold on. We got that there.
Oh shit!
So that's like proper Aussie biker shit right there. You know, and Greg was working at a shop called Sleeve Masters.
Uh-huh.
It was in King's Cross, so that was like a super grimy part of Sydney. And yeah, some of the stories that came out of there were crazy, man. Like, you know, I got lucky enough to get one of the last tattoos in his home studio called East Hills in Sydney, and you know, he would shoot bullets through the wall at sounds because he was tweaking. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of there's a pretty deep kind of bikey, a lot of, you know, I hate to say it, but there was a lot of drugs, a lot of crime around tattooing in Australia. I mean, Australia's got, I mean, you would have seen some of those movies with the
what's the famous one, the old school gangster biker movie? I forgot what it was called.
Is it Chopper?
Yeah, Chopper. Yeah. That's
yeah. So there's
movie.
Chopper characters, you know, and
that's great.
You know, Chopper was getting tattooed in jail, and you know, like there's definitely a hardness to the scene over here. It's been obviously watered down to the point where it's not non-existent, but it's being pushed out into the suburbs a lot more, and a lot of the old school dudes are kind of closing down now. They're getting at the end of their careers.
Yeah, you know what's cool about that? I like how I love how, because that's kind of how it is over here too, or was. I like that being the roots of this culture. It's fun. It's a fun root for the culture of tattooing. It had to be that, really. You know what I mean? What are some of the, do you guys have any like Jack Rudy's or any Philip Lou's of Australia? What are some of the old school dudes out there?
So Johnny Dollar, man, like Johnny Dollar, John Entwistle, he was the first tattoo supply company in Australia.
Okay.
And he worked at a post office, where, you know, people would pick up their packages, and he ordered a tattoo machine and practiced tattooing himself underneath the bench while he was waiting for customers. And then realized that because he had access to bringing in these products from overseas, he started to import tattoo supplies, and built his reputation as Johnny Dollar, or Gentleman John. And he's just a totally radical old school dude, man. He's so awesome, and he's so nice. And you know, when I first started tattooing, I would buy my loose needles from him, you know.
Yeah.
1,000 standard taper number 12s, and we go out and sniff flux for the afternoon, you know. I'm sure that shit's going to catch up with me one day, man. Hey, but yeah, so Johnny Dollar would be one. And then there's like, so I don't know so much about the old school tattoo history out here, because like, I'm a Kiwi, I'm born and raised in New Zealand.
Okay.
And even though, you know, I started tattooing 18 years ago, I kind of missed like a bunch of the names. So it's hard for me to sort of point out those sort of people. I mean, there's guys that are like from Philip Lou's generation. Okay. So Geordie Cole and Trevor McStay would be two guys that have got a pretty big international reputation for Japanese. And then, you know, there's other people like Reese Gordon. So these guys are all mid-40s, you know?
Yeah. I want to say something. I want to tell a little story about how Australia influenced Bishop. So Australia influenced Bishop. Bishop is like a big old pot of soup, right? The story of Bishop, even who I am. When I first got into tattooing, quick story, that was 27 years ago. I started making rotary machines. Of course, they were prison-style rotary machines with the Watson motor and the guitar string. So, but nevertheless, they were rotary machines. And when it came to like the professional machines, I tried a Mickey Sharps, and I used that off and on for a little bit. But then when it came to professional rotaries, Swash Drive was the first one that I used.
Yeah.
So I always send love and give shout-outs to Swash Drive, because they were one of the first rotary companies to exist, and this was back when nobody was really using rotaries.
Was that were they from New Zealand, Swash Drive?
You know what, I'm not sure. I thought it was Australia. I could be wrong though, but I think sometimes people group New Zealand and Australia kind of in the same territory. But
yeah, it's like America and Canada, man.
Yeah. We share the same border. But yeah, that was my first one, professional, actually besides the Revolution Rotary, but nobody remembers the Revolution Rotary from Huck Spalding. That was really what set it off for me. But Yeah, man, that's a little bit of a Bishop, Australia, or New Zealand tattoo history.
Yeah, yeah. I've got a $7 swash drive whip that I bought from China. Where I think you could buy like 8 machines for $80 or something like that. Crazy, man.
Yeah. Oh, James.
Okay, yeah. Actually, got a question over here from Sacred Gallery Tattoo. You know, with California and New York as trendsetters in the lettering, and now that with lettering going all over the world, who are the ones that are influenced you in Australia? Who are some of the top lettering guys? I mean, we know Mystic. Who are some of the other top lettering guys? Sam Taylor. Who else is out there?
So there's Sam and Reese, Mystic and Sam Taylor, and that's it. Man, like, there's some other people that are like doing stuff that's like, you know, similar to stuff that Sam or Reese has done. And there's some, you know, there's some quiet achievers as well, that do really nice script as well. Like there's a guy, Ryan, I can't remember his Instagram handle, Ryan from Progression. He does really good lettering, but he slays the Japanese stuff. So there's guys that are, you know, that have laced lettering into their styles, but they haven't really been out or not been able to, but they haven't chosen to focus strictly on lettering. And I mean, I didn't really choose to focus strictly on lettering either. It just happened that my books filled up with lettering.
Yeah. Now, what are some of your other lettering influences worldwide?
I always find this question weird because I don't know, man. Like I traveled Japan, you know, so in Japan I met a guy, Casper. He was amazing. He was really good with a flat edged marker. And then there's a guy, Usagro. Usagro's luckily, you know, Usagro was the first guy I saw paint with a brush on a wall. He did an exhibition at a gallery at an art studio that I used to be at. And I saw Usagro paint the lettering on the wall, and it blew me away. And I wanted to do something like Usagro, but obviously I couldn't paint like that, so I had to find my own way of doing it. Who else? I mean, I think Usagro would have to be my major influence.
Yeah.
And then there's obviously, you know, Chaz. Chaz, who's the godfather of it all. And then, like, you know, there's script guys, people that influence my fancy script, you know. So like Dan Sin. Dan Sin's script is fucking amazing, man. That guy's really, really good. But he's he does sick Japanese, like custom style Japanese, freehand Japanese. So, you know, Dan's another one of those guys that doesn't specialize in script, but he's got really, really good letters. And then, you know, it's like, I mean, I got lucky enough later on down the track to like meet Norm and Norm's script and his graffiti.
Yeah.
The way that Norm did his tattooing style with graffiti was always a really inspiring thing to see. Like, I love the way he did that. I never tried to copy it, but I really loved what he did with it.
Yeah.
And then it goes into
trends.
So, yeah, man. Norm's, you know, there's never going to be another Norm, man. Like, that guy bridged the gap between tattooing and graffiti so well.
Yeah.
That, you know, you can't fault him. He can do a script piece on a wall with 3Ds and it looks like graffiti, but it still looks like script. You know what I mean? It's like, but it's got all his flavors to it. It's like,
he was so
and then
fast.
he tattoos it.
He was so
or
fast.
Tattooed it. Rest in peace, Norm. You know, and
dude.
Yeah, man.
Shout out to Penny, his mother. God bless you. She checks in a lot. She checks in a lot and checks out the stories and stuff. So Penny, if you're listening, we love you. We always.
I love how Sleeps is keeping his you know, keeping Norm alive as well with his constantly posting and recognizing Norm's life. You know.
Yeah, shout out to Big Sleeps for that for sure. That was like his older brother, man. And you know, Sleeps is a lettering gangster too, man. We love his style too, man.
Yeah, like, you know, so those guys were kind of influences later on. So like even like Sleeps' ethic and the way he's bridging out, he's doing ink, he's doing clothes, he's always on. He's on it, man. Like, if there's masks, he Sleeps doing masks. If you need masks, like, he just gets it done, and I love that about him, you know.
He's not sleeping.
His hand style is so badass that it's fucking,
yeah,
you know,
he's
unmistakable.
Yeah, he's an anomaly because he's got a great story of coming from nothing, you know, being locked up, you know what I mean? he's walking perseverance. You know what I mean? And he's hungry. Like he will always thrive because, you know what I mean? Like I said, man, if we're in quarantine, he'll make masks. And his masks are dope, by the way, man. Head on out to Big Sleep's YouTube Instagram page, you guys, if you want to pick up a dope mask. Are you making any masks?
Nah, man, I'm not making any masks.
Well, we saw you doing that high fashion, man. That was
I've been dabbling in other areas, but that was before the fucking virus took over the world, wasn't
it? Yeah. We'll be back. So how did you get involved in some high fashion action?
So that's been through exhibiting. So the fine art kind of world was like a little bit of a window into my work from the people in the high fashion world. So I did an exhibition last year with a couple by the name of Sandra and Andrew, or they go by the name Sandrew. And they come from the fashion world, so they had a lot of contact. They were huge. They had a big accessory company, you know, supplying to Sportsgirl and whatnot. So they had a lot of contacts in the fashion world, and they curated my art show and invited some of their people, their friends, I guess, that lasted, you know, because they're retired from the industry now, but the people that they're still in contact with and friends. And one of their friends is a woman named Lisa Barron, and Lisa's a Melbourne staple when it comes to that high fashion kind of racist style, you know, fancy kind of money area, high street fashion, you know.
Yep.
And she asked me to do her a textile, a print for a garment, which was the conversation we had. I wasn't sure what she was thinking of doing, and I always try to collaborate with people where it's, you know, I'm not going to collaborate with someone doing a t-shirt, you know, because I can do my own t-shirt.
Yeah.
But if it comes to like a crazy ass yardage print on some like suit fashion that I'm never going to do, then I'm always down for a collab there, because I'm going to be able to learn something from that, you know.
Yeah.
So she asked, and I said yes, and I had one meeting with her on to figure out what she wanted, and then I painted her painting and sent it to her, man. Photographed it and sent it to her, and then washed my hands of it, forgot about it, and then she got to work and made all the designs and cut it all out, and then came back to me with this these pretty crazy fashion suits, and then ended up like I didn't really know how like influential Lisa was in the industry, and then it was Melbourne Fashion Week on the catwalk, sitting there like side of the catwalk, watching my lettering walk down the runway, man. It was cool.
How did that make you feel?
It was amazing, you know. I mean, I was hanging out with the mayor, and you know, like it was a trip, cool, man. Yeah, the director of Melbourne Fashion Week was saying he really liked what I did, and you know, it was really cool, man.
So what are some of your aspirations and dreams? So you're painting and you're kind of entering this world of fine art and high fashion. And I think that it's safe to say that a lot of artists that dabble in painting, like, you know, we would love to be in the museums and have art shows and semi-retire from tattooing and have, you know, these great expeditions and sell paintings for 20 to 100 grand. Tell us about your fine art and where do you see that going for you?
So, you know, we had this conversation in Javier's, man, about opening up a tattoo shop. And putting in a couple of hard years work, and then that's allowing me to have the freedom to paint more, you know, and that was my end goal. Like I was super inspired after that conversation to open a shop, you know. So I went back to Australia and then put my money where my mouth was and did what I had to do to get it done. So now, you know, the shop's open. It's pretty small. Like, you know, I was thinking before, I was like, fuck, you know, I would like the shop to be a little bit bigger, but now that this has happened, I've realized that I made the right choice, you know, like 7 artists in the shop, that's enough, you know, and the overheads aren't going to sink me if I can't work for 2 months, you know. So, you know, the goal is to have, you know, everybody fully booked out, you know, paying a decent commission that I can then turn into payments for my mortgages and the rent for the houses and stuff like that frees me up so I can paint more. And then the goal is to you know, I'm going to say it now, is to have like 50 grand minimum on a painting within the next 2 years. That's my goal. So I want my work to be selling for 50 G's minimum. And before COVID, you know, I was meant to be having an art show in Sydney. So I've given myself 4 art shows that I want to do. And one was Sydney. And then the next one was going to be somewhere in the US, probably in LA. Yeah. And then I wanted to go to Paris, and then I wanted to finish the last show 2 years from now, I guess, would be New York, and the goal is to sell out New York, you know.
Well, you let us know when you want to do something in LA. We'll help you coordinate it and
thank you, man.
Get a good location. We got the connections over there, of course.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So I love your paintings, man, and I better hurry up and get a couple more before they hit 50, man.
Yeah, we're gonna do it though, dude. We're gonna fucking do it, man. Like I
just picked up recently a dope Deffer piece. Shout out to Deffer, he's a sicko.
Yeah, I love that.
Really dope painting from him. I just picked up an original from Saber.
Yeah, I saw that Saber. He's you know, Saber's book. That old book that he released, I think it was his first book. That was a big influence to me as well, you know, just to see the dedication of that guy and the romance that he holds. He loves graffiti so much, you know, like,
he is
for being a graffiti writer and then reading that book and then realizing that I'd shared moments in time of a similar feeling to that, you know, like that's something that's pretty amazing to be able to. I mean, Saber was one of the first people to comment on a painting that I did when I started up my Instagram.
Oh yeah,
it was the biggest pat on the back you could ever get, you know.
That's definitely the truth. Yeah, because it's to respect someone else's lettering is very difficult to do, because I find that people in the lettering world, in the graffiti world, they only respect people that have a unique style. You know what I mean? Originality.
I know, man.
Style. So that's,
I mean, Saber's stuff is it's unbridled, isn't it? You know, there's no.
He's untouchable.
There's no. It feels like it comes from the back of his brain. It doesn't. There's no.
Yeah, you'd have to be in his head to be able to do something like he does it. Yeah, that's why I mean that's one of I was so happy to commission him for an original. And yeah, man, let's get some other questions here.
I've got a question for you, bud. So what's some of the best wisdom or some of the advice that you've received along your way in tattooing and just in art in general? What is some of the best words of wisdom?
One that's with art in general was that, you know, your art career is a marathon, not a sprint, you know. So, you know, you got to keep grinding, because, you know, the finish line, if there is one, it's a long way away, man. You're not just gonna, you know, do a couple of paintings and be a fucking make a big splash in the pond. You got to grind, you know.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, it's a hard one, man. I mean, all the advice you get given, so much advice with tattooing. Yeah. I'll never forget a guy, Ray. I worked in Kent, in England, Rochester, for a year for a shop called Medway Tattoo, and there was a guy there, Ray, and he goes, the 2 best bits of advice that you can get for tattooing is you've got to be a bit of a butcher, and bullshit baffles brains, you know. So, you know, and he was meaning that by saying, you know, like, if you can bullshit a little bit to your clients and have them believe what you're saying, then you're going to be able to do what you want to do a little bit more often, you know. Yeah. So yeah, that was one of the things with tattooing is being able to convince your clients to get what you want to do, not just do what they want to do. So that was a good one for me, you know.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many bits of advice that are related to certain parts of tattooing as well, you know. So, I mean, I always say to people, like, when my clients aren't really feeling the idea, or you don't feel like they're on board with the design, or they're always trying to change what you're doing, and you're trying to push forward an idea to them and say, hey man, like, you know, this is what I think we should do, but sometimes they don't listen, you know. They're like, no, but I want to do this, and it's like you can tell that they're not absorbing what you're saying. So you've got to make them say what you want them to say. Yeah, you know, you've got to make them feel like your idea is their idea. And that's really important.
And to speak on that too, it's a lot of times as an artist, our ideas are better because a lot of times people don't know what they want, and so like they'll ask for something kind of like semi-stupid, and we're sitting there like, shit, that would not look good, that size or that area. So you do bullshit baffles brains. We'll call that the triple B theory.
Yeah.
Triple B theory.
And then the other one, you know, the other one that I like to say to my clients is like, look, you know, you've just got to look at it from my lane. I'm not trying to take you on a different highway. I just want you to change lanes for a minute and see it from where I'm driving. You know, I'm not trying to take you off down a side street into a different city. I'm just trying to just change lanes a little bit so you can see it from where I'm looking at it from. You know, that's
some good wisdom right there, and especially for the apprentices, people that are kind of just getting into tattooing and learning lettering. What one piece of advice do you have for them?
Oh man, fucking don't bite my shit. No, I'm joking. Don't bite, man.
Listen up, guys. Don't bite his shit. Don't bite anyone's shit.
If you're gonna copy, don't act like it's yours because everybody knows it's not, man. Like if you're gonna copy, just copy. We all gotta copy. We all gotta have a little nibble, but like,
just don't eat the whole plate.
Yeah, just don't make it out like you made the restaurant, man. You didn't fucking open that restaurant.
Yeah. You can have a couple chips, but that's my basket.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you know, we all do it. We all look. We all borrow. We're all influenced by the outside world. But at the end of the day, you know, you can't just write on the back of someone else's style. Like, you've just got to realize that the more you go, the more you do something, the more you work, the more your style is going to be allowed to flourish.
Yeah.
But if you're always copying, you're never giving yourself any kind of start in the fact that, you know, you're trying to get your own style. So you're trying to make your own style out of 5 different lettering guide styles all put into one. You got to get that, and then you got to go on your own eventually, you know, and just, it's not going to happen overnight. You're not going to get your own style overnight. It's going to take years. So you just got to keep grinding. And just, you know, just believe, man, believe in it, that it's going to happen. Because, you know, so a lot of people I talk to a lot of artists and they're like, man, you know, I just wish I had my own thing, you know. And it's like, you will, but like, you can't try. That's the fucked thing. It's like, you can't just try and have your own thing all of a sudden, because that's not how it happens.
It's going to find you. I say that all the time.
Yeah, it does.
You dabble in a bunch of different stuff, like you said, and then all of a sudden it finds you and it feels right. Like you said, like, it's got to come from within. It's got to feel right.
Yeah. Yeah. And you got to be able to look people in the eye, man. Like, you know, you can look everyone in the eye and say, like, I mean, that's my style. Like, yeah, okay, it might look like someone else's shit, but I mean, there's a collective consciousness in the world. Yeah. And that's like, you know, you can't have every idea of yours can't be original, and other people share the same ideas of you, you know. So there is times where, you know, you'll see your work looking similar to someone else's. Like, there's a guy, Rafael Slicks, in Brazil, and I met him at Art Basel in Miami like 8 years ago. And we didn't have the same style, but we have the same way of looking at buildings and applying our lettering to stuff. And it was, you know, it was so crazy to see. I was like, man, I thought I was the only person who wanted to do it like that. And I seen this guy doing it, and I was like, fuck, man. I just gave him a big hug. I was like, my brother, you know, like, we still chat today, man, you know.
Yeah, it's all a collective consciousness, for sure.
Yeah, man.
Okay, so we are getting close over here before it equals 1 hour. So, shout out to LA Originals again. Have you seen the documentary?
Yes, sir. Man, I love that documentary.
Yep. If you guys haven't seen it yet, see it. If you've seen it once, see it twice. You gotta see some things you missed. So I always give a shout out to Cartoon and Esteban. Those are our brothers. So check out the documentary if you haven't already. And then one last thing, my brother. Want to end this with one last question. What kind of inspiration can Mayo give to everyone that's listening in the art community that's locked down? What kind of message of hope can you give everybody right now?
Make the most of this shit, man. This is the time that we all wished we had, right?
Yeah.
I wish I had time to paint. I wish I had time to do this. I wish I had time to do that. Well, you've got it. So don't just sit on the couch, man. Yeah. You can go into the spare room or do whatever it is that you've got to do. Start drawing. Draw every day. Like, you used to tattoo every day.
Yeah.
So draw every day, and you'll come out of this with something, man. Otherwise, if you sit around doing fuck all, you're not going to come out of this with other than some bills, you know.
Yeah, but we don't like bills. Well, hey, man, that is good advice too, and that's what it is right now. Artists, we create no matter what. If it's not tattooing, it's drawing or painting. But do not be sitting on the couch all day long, guys and girls. Get out there and create.
Make sure every day you do something.
Yeah, but thank you, my brother, for checking in with us, dude. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for considering me, man.
Always.
You know, like.
Dude,
and backing up after Carlos is a big, it's a big honor to talk to you guys. And Carlos was the other day, and now it's me. It makes me feel really lucky, man.
Well, thank you, dude. Like I said, we want to check in with you, check in with your country, and just see how everything's going on. We can share with the world. You know, everybody's curious how everybody's doing, really. And it's a breath of fresh air to kind of hear that friends of ours from different parts of the world are going through the same thing, having the same emotions. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. That's it, man. We're all one big fucking family, you know. If you're creative, you understand, you know. If you truly are creative, you understand.
Stay tuned, Famous Stars and Straps. I'll be redoing the family logo. Stay tuned for that. Family is a word that we take very seriously around here. Shout out to Travis Barker and Famous Stars and Straps. Stay tuned for that project.
Brother, man, we thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Mayo. We definitely look forward to having you back out here, and we just love sharing this experience with you, man.
As soon as those borders are open, guys, I'm back. Thanks so much.
Definitely.
You know what? Yep. Home is over here for you anytime you want. Me and Carlos' spot.
Yeah, bro. I'll post up at Carlos's.
There we go. There we go. Well, we had you joining us here today. On Friday, we have Mr. Nicky Norberg with us here for Quarantine Conversations. So thanks again for everybody tuning in. Thanks again, Mayo. We love you guys. Stay up, stay positive, stay focused, and remember, if nobody loves you, Bishop's got you, baby.
You know
And we out, my man. We out.
All right, guys. Have a good one.
Later, brother.